Hey, good morning, guys. It is March 20th, first day of spring, actually, here in 25 anyway. And the scripture passage this morning is Genesis 18, and it's Abraham dealing with God. And the Chambers is kind of addressing this concept of understanding God or knowing God as the prerequisite for understanding or knowing his will. Sometimes we say we want to know God's will, we want to know God's will. And what Chambers is saying is that what we should be doing is desiring to know God. And by extension, then we understand his will. If you think about a married couple that's been married for many years, Brandy and I have been married 25, hope to be married 25 more, but there's very few things when if someone says to me, "Hey, would you and Brandy like to do this?" I have a pretty good handle on what Brandy's going to say after 25 years, or what her thinking's going to be, what her opinion's going to be. It's because I know her, and so understanding her will becomes much more just an extension of knowing her. And so Abraham was someone who truly had a friendship with God. And this is an interesting story. And if you haven't read through Genesis in detail, I can't stress to you enough how much reading and knowing the stories of the Old Testament has helped me understand the character of God in a way that people, modern day Christians, a lot of them get stuck in the New Testament, and it's a great place to be stuck. Well, it's a great place to be. It's a great thing to know the New Testament and all the epistles. But understanding the character of God through the stories in the Old Testament is just absolutely critical. And so anyway, Abraham, these three men approach him, and he understands what he's dealing with. He's dealing with God himself, which is really interesting because the three men, there were three characters there. There were two angels because they go on to Sodom and Gomorrah, and there was Jesus. Jesus is the incarnate God. He is the image of the invisible God. So Jesus meets with Abraham, and they have this back and forth. And Jesus tells Abraham that they're going to have a son by next year. And it's really interesting because a lot of people don't grasp that Jesus was not just incarnated, or he didn't just show up on the scene as a baby in the New Testament. Jesus was at work in the lives of the patriarchs. So Jesus shows up, he's talking to Abraham, and they have this conversation not only about Sarah and the child that they're going to have, but about Sodom and Gomorrah. And he says, "Hey, should I really hide this from him, what I'm about to do?" And then he shares with Abraham. And that's what Chambers is kind of getting down to. If we have a friendship with God, then his will become apparent to us. It will be something that he shares with us because we know him. He says here, when you are rightly related to God, it's a life of freedom and liberty and delight. You are God's will. And all your common sense decisions are his will for you unless he checks. So what happens is you start to think, and this is something I struggle with. You start to think the way God thinks, and that's something that I think all of us should desire, to think like God thinks, so that his will be apparent to us by the way we're thinking. If we're thinking the way he thinks, then his will be our will. Further down, he says that Jesus desired that we would be one with him, just as he is one with the Father, so that being one with him, we would be able to think like that. Jesus said many, many times, "I'm here to do the will of the Father, to do the will of the Father." And so, when we are one with Jesus, we'll do his will as well. As a little bit of a litmus test, Chambers asks, were you last thing you prayed for, were you devoted to your desire or to God? And the point of asking is that you may get to know God better, not that we would know his will, but we would know him. I think that's such a better goal. And I'm trying to think of an analogy, but it's such a better goal to want to know the person of God, and then the will of God becomes apparent, than to just know the will of God. It's like it's just, if I can understand what Brandy is going to do in a situation, because I've just studied her and know what I know what she does in a situation, that becomes very calculated, and even a computer could do that. But if I know her, then I know how she will react, and I think that's what Chambers is getting at here. We need to maybe forego this desire to know God's will and then desire to know God. And back to, by the way, that's back to the study of the Old Testament. I think to know God, we really truly need to study His Word in a way that we haven't before. To know the character of God, to know how God deals with people, to know God, to know how God, how He thinks, um, and get to know Him. So anyway, hope that's helpful today. Go back and read some Old Testament today. Genesis 18 is a great chapter. You guys have a great day.